Hello, everyone. Welcome back to CanadianGameDevs.com. This week, we've got a special interview, a exclusive. I don't know if that's true. Have you guys done interviews with any other podcasts yet?
We may have, unfortunately.
All right, I'm just going to pretend that you haven't and say exclusive interview with Only by Midnight, a rad indie game studio from Edmonton, Alberta. And joining us this evening, or whenever you're listening to this, hence the podcast, is Andrew and Jen. Can you please introduce yourselves? Let us hear a bit about what you do and where you're at.
Sure. Hi, I'm Andrew Charnetsky. I'm one half of Only by Midnight. I've been making games for 15 years. I'm a co-founder of Serious Labs in Edmonton, where we make like VR training simulators and whatnot. And for the last year and a half, I've been working on Curved Space with my lovely wife Jennifer, because shooting energy spiders on crazy terrain is just more exciting than dealing with like big industrial clients.
I love that.
I'm Jen LaFace. I'm responsible for marketing, administration, communications, quality assurance, writing, anything non-dev related. My background, I've worked science fiction fantasy writer and editor for 10 years. And I also have worked for OnSpec magazine, Canada's longest science fiction fantasy magazine, as a publisher's assistant. So I had to herd cats in that role. So it's been great working on Curved Space with Andrew here.
That's awesome. That's such a cool path to getting into game development. I'm always interested to hear where people come from when they get into games. So, VR, training sims, sci-fi, fantasy, writing and editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Seems like a pretty solid path.
And of course, our regular hosts, Steve and myself, we have some questions for you. If you don't know, CanadianGameDevs.com is a site dedicated to covering all the games made in Canada and the people who create them, like you two. So I always want to start with, where did the name come from? Why Only by Midnight?
Well, I was just thinking Only by Midnight. For myself, it was kind of this, midnight is this time of confusion as well, where it's like, do people mean the next day or the current day? And I just thought it was kind of interesting, like Only by Midnight. It's kind of like that bewitching hour is kind of what I was thinking. I know Andrew has his thoughts too.
Well, when Jen first proposed that, we had a prototype that started growing roots. It started to become something real. And it's like, you know what? We should do this properly, and we're going to have to incorporate something. And there's going to be actual paperwork and things, but we need to do that if we're going to approach, say, Nintendo. And she proposed this name, and it's like, this is great, because basically, I've been working during the day for Serious Labs, and then I'd come home and we'd have supper and spend time with the kid, and then I'd be doing this either in the evening or the very early morning. Either way, it would be night. And so it's kind of like, what a perfect kind of name for this project that was basically a moonlighting exercise. So there you go.
I love that. By moonlight. How everyone should make games. Or in a cabin in the woods.
and the name was available when we did the name search, and all that went well, and people don't completely assume it's a porn studio or something. So yeah, there we go.
Ooh, I didn't think about it till you said it, but now it's in my head.
Yeah, you know what? It sticks in people's minds. Let's run with it.
Two other big criteria is make sure the name's available for domains and stuff, and does it sound like porn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure it's not a weird acronym.
I've worked for 3DI and SLI, so yeah, the three-letter acronyms are a little much.
Now I want to ask, where did the inspiration for Curved Space come from? You said you've been working on it for a year and a half now?
So some of the prototypes go back, forever, but basically everything on Steam right now is since February 2019. Although this last build has been fairly straightforward, because we've gone through these prototypes and sort of set out to build a thing. But
so where did the idea for the original prototype come from?
And so that was actually, we used to make a lighting software called Pure Light, and I made a bunch of these sort of lighting study environments that had lots of curves and weird shapes and stuff like that. And somewhere between that and wouldn't it be awesome to have something on that surface and because it's light map based, sample the light at point, make a game out of that. And that got into the idea of, how could I have a 2D game on a 3D surface? And went through a few different prototypes and found something that you would look at and go, oh yeah, that's sort of proto curve space. And I was actually pretty happy with how it played. It's I've cracked the idea of physics. I've cracked the idea of how the combat and movement works. Like there's actually a game here, and that was kind of early 2019. And I was all proud of myself. It's like, yeah, I figured out this game. We're just gonna finish it up, throw it on Steam. This is gonna be awesome. And then I got Jen to play through it, and she's like, yeah, it's kind of fun to play. What are we doing? Why?
Why are we doing this? So we tried to hash out kind of the reason why someone would play the game, kind of like the motivation and that sticks with the character. And we were driving down to all things from Edmonton to Calgary to like a writing conference, and I turned to Andrew and I said, well, how about transtemporal space spiders? And he's like, yeah, maybe.
As you do.
and like that's a totally on-brand thing for Jen just to like turn around and say. And if you look at Curve Space, yeah, you can see how transtemporal space spiders. Got it. This fits.
And it kind of led to like there's a little bit of a choose your own adventure flavor too as you go through the story as well. But yeah, that was so funny. We were going down a writing convention and it inspired all this. We didn't even get to the panels before we were thinking up ideas, but yeah, no, it went from there.
Yeah.
So
So where would you say the major source of inspiration are, either for the story or gameplay or setting?
Well, we hired a 2D artist, Kyle Charles. He's worked. I know him actually through On Spec. On Spec had like a segment of kind of a graphic novel comic segment for a while, and he'd done some artwork for us. And he's done stuff for I think Heavy Metal and I think 69, which is zombies in Vietnam. I think. That's
Nice.
the comic. But so he did some artwork for us, and then we went back and said, okay, we need some more artwork. And then we looked at the characters that he'd done and thought, well, yeah, we can center it around this female space miner energy farmer, and we kind of went from there.
Yeah, so like the original character was just like we wanted a slightly jokey intro just to sort of ground things, and didn't want to do like the Space Marine or something like that. And we're both fans of like female protagonists, so it's kind of like, okay, well, if she's not like a space fighter, what's the alternative? And this is right before like Love, Death, and Robots, but like, yeah, of course, she's basically somewhere between like sci-fi oil rig worker and farmer. And like our intro little cinematic, it's like first we used to gather energy and cool music playing and whatever, and it's kind of sci-fi oil riggy. This attracted spiders, and the music picks up, and like of course it does, and these giant spiders, and then it flicks to her and and now we harvest spiders, and she has this perfect smirk, and it's like, yes, that's a good thing. It's much more entertaining source of energy, and built a lot of the game kind of around that first image, and then turned that character, and then we thought, again, it's like, this is good, we got it, we're harvesting spiders, that's all we need. And the damn players, they want a story with like reason and arcs and things, so we really sort of fleshed that out, and like what sort of timey-wimey parallel universe stuff would start to make sense around this character. So that was that's on the story side. Gameplay wise, if you play it, it's the big inspirations, although there's a lot of things going on, but the big ones would be like Unreal Tournament 99, like the original Unreal Tournament, and Steriden. So two games I've spent way too much time playing, and it feels a little bit of both, but on a 2D surface mapped to, or 2D field mapped to a 3D surface. And
That's weird. I wouldn't have picked those for inspirations, because the first thing that jumped to my mind was, I don't know if you're familiar with Super Stardust.
I've heard of it since, but nope, that's that was not. And since learning about it, like Nano Assault, it's kind of like, yeah, this is awesome. This is exactly the sort of game I'd have liked to have played as inspiration. Learned about it well after Curve Space had been sort of established.
Oh man, that's so cool. I wouldn't have thought that was the inspiration, but it's cool to think about you inspired by mapping an existing game to a different plane of play.
Like think, like Geometry Wars, and actually Geometry Wars 3 kind of was on the same wavelength. Like, again, after I'd had some initial prototypes, but like, yeah, a lot of Geometry Wars. Love the sort of twin stick shooter feel, the classic shoot 'em ups. Like Steriden, I'm a huge fan of. So that, but a lot of people have gone like, this kind of feels retro, not necessarily like even the retro, but like it feels like kind of some of the better like early 2000s games, and it's like, yeah, that's when I had lots of time to play games and not work.
Steve, why don't you ask some of these later questions?
Yeah, sure. So the game is coming out on Steam Early Access. Wondering why did you kind of decide to go the like Steam Early Access like route?
Well, it's not really. We have a demo on Steam, and then we have the beta, which is basically a sign into the Discord, and we'll give you a little bit more content, but it also means where we can talk about and get feedback. But yeah, it's a not really the full early access model, and it's been one of those big discussions back and forth.
So
Hindsight, not sure if I'd have done it differently, but is what it is.
so with the beta, how do you kind of set up the beta like on Steam? Do you have to like tell them? Do they give you any resources? It's I guess you were kind of using it as a way to guide people to the Discord, really as well, right?
Yeah, like at the end of the day, the whole point of the beta, like it's the Steam demo, but with a argument that unlocks a little bit more content. So it's really just a demo. I would have loved to do here is like a beta key or beta build branch, whatever you want to call it, on Steam, but that you can't have wish lists. Like you can't, if you give someone a key, even for development, they can't wish list. And so it was one of these, you know what, really it's going to be the same content. Like we didn't want to give away the entire game in this public beta. So, well, maybe let's turn that into a demo. And it was about the same time we were talking with Xbox about being part of their summer event. So it's like, actually, you know what, let's actually do this, have a proper demo. And then the beta is really a little bit of extra content, but also a means of tell us about the demo and let's talk. And it's been really quite successful in that. We've had a couple of great discussions on our Discord. We've brought in a couple of the people from that into basically the in-studio development side of things, and the feedback has been just amazing to really help hone this and understand what works. And a big shout out to our beta testers, especially I'm Dan, who's really helped show us how this game works at like a high skill level of play, and it's been amazing to kind of narrow it down and dial it in to like how you'd want to play this if you're going for that trillion points. And then also a big shout out to Sam, who's like, this is just a fun game to play, and really kind of helping us bridge that whole spectrum.
Nice. I guess like talk about like the music a little bit. Like, did you guys like where did the idea come from? The music? What was like the kind of the theme that you wanted to go in for it? Like, who did the music for you guys? Like, what was that process kind of like?
Well, how that started, we've gone through the label Fixed Neon, but how that happened was Andrew was programming in the wee hours of the morning, and he would always have like there's a couple, I think, DJs on YouTube. There's like Astral Throb and
Prime Thanatos, New Retrowave,
and they play all this great synthwave music, which has like vocals and not vocals, and you can kind of get into the zone with it. And Andrew was listening to this, and I think it was inspiring all of his Tron lines in the art and just the direction. And he's like, yeah, there seems to be like a theme with this music here. Maybe we should like incorporate it. And after some investigation, there's a label called Fixed, and they have also another label called Fixed Neon, which does kind of like more of the synthwave. And it's been absolutely a pleasure working with them. They understand gaming, which is really cool.
Yeah, the music literally started to color the game to the point where I'd like do a play test and I'd have to put some of this on in the background, and then it's like, okay, if instead of like commissioning music, which is sort of the original plan, although that can get quite expensive, it's like maybe I can just license the stuff that already exists. And so I went to trace back one of the songs that I rather liked and ran into the Fixed Neon guys, and they are awesome. To any game devs listening to this, highly recommend FIXT, and they get games. So, and to put that into contrast, so for them, they're like, cool, you want these songs in the game. Yeah. Here is a price. Wow, I can afford that. This is awesome. And yeah, we even arranged a bit of a cross-promotional thing. Like, they have more music than I could possibly ever get, so it was great. So we're exclusive with Fixed, but it also means that like I'm enabled to like share their praises, and they've done a little bit of promotion. It's been great. But to put that into contrast, there's this one song that we wanted that they didn't have. And so we tried to license this. And it started through a guy in Los Angeles, and then it connected to another, like, I guess his boss, this agent in Los Angeles. And then that connected to the original artist in the UK. And so we had to negotiate the like master rights, and so we back and forth, and we finally got an arrangement there. But then for the performance rights, so this agent actually now needed to be released by his label, and then that was another group out of the UK. But then they didn't have full control for worldwide rights, and basically with each stage they started adding zeros, and it ended up going back to Los Angeles, and she's like, "You can't afford this song," and it's just like, "Oh, thanks." So then
That
it was
sounds
like
awful.
Oh, it was absolutely miserable. And so then meanwhile there's Fixed, and it's like, this is amazing. And we negotiated a fixed price for access to the library, so it's like, maybe we can just rebuild our intro cinematic around one of the Fixed tracks, and we did, and haven't looked back. That was great. So yeah, music licensing, I've heard horror stories, I've seen horror stories. It can be pretty brutal, but Fixed, they get games, so and they've got an awesome library.
And we've got three artists. We have Scandroid, which is Clayton, and he, I think, owns the Fixed label. Fury Weekend, and also Three Force, and the music's been great. One of the songs that stands out is, we have the instrumentals to them, is Scandroid's remix of, I think, Neo Tokyo by
I think that's the Dance.
Dance with the Dead, which was really,
you
should
great
check it out.
music.
It's pretty cool.
I'll have to give that a listen. I really, really liked the music in the game. It was one of the things that struck me right away playing it, which is why we wanted to ask about it. Because, I'm always interested in those stories about how, whether you work with a composer to make it for you or license it, and there's so many different ways to get your music.
Music it's a really important part of the experience, and so again, for game devs out there, like, if you're looking for something that already exists, I highly recommend trying to license it from at least a label or someone who's understanding. Fix is great. On the composer side, if you need something different, that's a great experience. It's a lot more expensive. Like, you're potentially, like, you're working with a master craftsman, right? But we have an unreleased project, and that was great. And we needed this unsettling horror, sort of like something a bit
like
different,
with attention to it, and just kind of this build, and it kind of like meanders, but there's some type of, you're on edge with the music. And it wasn't even like a horror thing. It was a VR experience we were working on, and it really added to that.
And like, you give those sort of weird requirements, and he's like, I got it. And then he came back, it's like, so my dad had this old rusty piano, and I like took it apart, and I like scraped various tools across the strings, and I took some samples of that, and here, let me play this. And you're listening, it's just like, that is amazing, and it is unsettling but neat, and it escalates, and like, it ticks off all these boxes. So like, if you need something weird, or something that really fits to an emotional theme or all that, like, work with a composer. It is fantastic. But if you just like need some good synthwave beats, consider licensing them.
So you mentioned an unannounced VR side project. Is that also by Only by Midnight?
That predated Curve Space, so hopefully we get to pick that up again. You know what? I guess we can mention it now. We just got a letter saying that we got our basic funding for the Tragic Kingdom, which is going to be our next project. So we pitched that back this spring with a couple of friends, and that's all going to be a whole separate discussion. I'd love to talk to you guys about just that project itself, but it's really cool. It's a pencil-drawn, quirky sort of platformer, but it leverages a lot of the weird tech from Curve Space to do platforming in kind of a way you haven't seen, and all with this just amazing pencil drawn aesthetic. And like, Curve Space is what can Andrew build with a little bit of help from guys like Jerry and Kyle and whatnot. The Tragic Kingdom is what happens when Only by Midnight gets funds to hire guys like Jerry and Michael and people who actually know how to do this stuff and leverage some of this tech. So that's going to be a fun one. But I don't know how much I'm allowed to speak about it quite yet, other than like we got a letter this week and it's like, we got this. This is real.
That's
Scoop?
awesome. Canadian Game Dev Scoop, Steve, play the sound. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Alberta game dev scene. We've done interviews pretty much every province across the country. How do you find the game development scene in Alberta, in Edmonton specifically?
It's been great. There was a monthly meetup, which was awesome. So all the developers would get together. There would be kind of the usual suspects every month, and they would do be a nice setup. There'd be presentations, and then people have a chance to either demo a game and people could try it, or there'd be presentations on a wide array of topics, like from approaching influencers and what they're looking for, to grants and funding that's available, to someone would talk about, like Andrew talked about his experience developing for Nintendo. And it's a great community, and I've noticed just with Edmonton itself and the science fiction and fantasy scene too. You wouldn't expect it, but it's really, there's a lot of community in Edmonton, and you get like a lot of community within the groups and interests. And even when we went to Reboot Red in 2019, and the Alberta community was great. We met people from Calgary, and everyone's just open, friendly, and they like to talk about game development.
Yeah, a very vibrant scene in Edmonton. The game camp or beer pub, as well as game pub, as well as I think there's was sort of a restaurant meetup with the usual suspects back in the olden times when we could all go out to places. But just great people all around. Edmonton for a while was basically like BioWare and then like a couple of little pieces, but it's spread up a bit. And so like I think on the big side you have BioWare is certainly still the mountain, and then you have Improbable and Serious Labs, I think, are probably the big three, and then you have Beamdog and a whole slew of indies, and a lot of experience in like former BioWare or people out of like the U of A or all these sort of projects. And like it's great. Like my cousins have a little VR escape room business. Learned about a couple actually new studios just a couple weeks ago. Like it's surprisingly vibrant on the indie side, and I think a big part of that has to do with the university, the colleges that kind of really set up and empower this, as well as having like a big draw like BioWare to kind of anchor things.
That's awesome. That's I think a pattern I've seen is there's always a big studio, whether it's Ubisoft or EA, and people work there for a bit until they get these indie inspirations and sort of split off, and then the indie scene grows around the bigger pool of talent.
Yes. Yeah, definitely feel that. And it's nice to have a little bit of competition, isn't even the right word, but a little bit of variation on the kind of the anchor tenant side between BioWare, Improbable, and Serious Labs. But even that's fairly permeable. I've got friends who started at Serious Labs who are now at Beamdog. Serious Labs, half of the staff there had time at BioWare, right? And like it's kind of all around. But yeah, a lot of really good people in the scene in Edmonton.
One question I like to ask developers we have on the show is, what is one thing you wish you knew at the start of your game development career that you know now?
Oh, for us, I would say marketing starts day one. Oh man, that's that's getting the word out. I mean, we got the philosophy, if you've got to shake as many hands as possible, sure. That's great, but you have to be, and there's that, and the other one that goes with that is just you have to jump into it. If you if you push back or hesitate, you're starting later and later. You're putting the starting line further and further away. It's just even diving into it. You have a chance to learn, and you will you'll make mistakes, and then you'll course correct, and that's been really really important for us.
So market as soon as possible.
And it's not even like marketing, like buying, like more of like getting the word out and building a community, and like even just as simple as posting on social media and talking to people, and you just have to put yourself out there.
Yeah, marketing is huge. We're still learning and figuring a bunch of that out. My experience through Serious Labs has been business to business. marketing, which is different. Like I could tell you all about how to get a pilot project with Caterpillar, but I have no idea on the like how to leverage Twitter, and we're just figuring these things out. So that's been weird and scary. Uh, yeah, marketing is one of those big pieces, and it's been really nice being able to have Jen like really dive into that and kind of share some of that. A lot of my indie peers, you see, it's kind of like, cool, you've been working on this project for years, and the netcode is really solid, and the 3D art is coming along really good. And have you posted this anywhere? No, it's you got to get this thing out there. You got to start sharing. And then I think like the other side I'd have is like I've been doing this for a little over I think in game design total, I think that's what now 17 years. But like Serious Labs is my time. There's going to be 16 years coming up. So I've been doing this for a long while, and it's only now that I feel I know enough to kind of jump out and try this crazy indie-ness. And even then, like I'm extraordinarily interdisciplinary. That's my thing. Like I know the programming, I know the visual art side, some of the sound, and I've really put in a ton of time to kind of understand that and understand how to pull all these things into an experience. So I see so many indies. It's kind of like, cool, I've taken my 6-month diploma course, and now I'm going to go out and make a game by myself. And it's like, oof, as a practice exercise, great. Anything that gets you doing stuff is good, but like, ugh. And then, or you have a lot of these people where it's kind of like, we've got 1 or 2 years experience or something like this, and now we're going to go and do this. And to get a game out there, you have to be like, you need a programming team, you need an art team, you need an audio team, you need a marketing team, and at the end of the day, it's a business, so you need a CEO. And it's like, that's a lot of hats for 2 of us to wear,
and even daily operations
and like,
too, like admin and
all of this. And like, I've got 10 years experience being like a one-stop shop of programming and art. Like, I know how to do that. And so then you see so many where it's like, cool, I now know how to do art, I'm going to make a game by myself. No, find a team, be part of that. And yes, teams can be scary and unstable, and especially when things are free, there can be a lot of weird drama and stuff like that. But like, the best advice I'd have to someone starting out would be, don't try and do the solo indie thing. Don't try necessarily do the like, we're gonna make a game and go all indie. Join a team, find some mentors, learn from people, learn the process, learn the tools, and then consider stepping out.
Well, that seems like a really great note to wrap it up on. Thank you so much, Andrew and Jen. Do you want to plug all of your stuff one more time before we say goodbye?
Certainly.
Come visit us at curvespacegame.com is our website. We are listed on Steam under Curvespace. You can wishlist us. That'd be awesome. And we have our demo up too. And if you're interested, visit our website. It's curvespacegame.com. And there is a link to our Discord. You can join it, and you can ask for a chance to...
Yeah, well, join the Discord. We're happy to upgrade that Steam demo to the beta one with a little bit more content, but mostly we just really love the feedback. We're in that final stages while things are still a little bit plastic, so that feedback has been super valuable. If you don't have a gaming computer, you can find us at... if you search for Curve Space on Xbox Live, the demo went out as part of the summer event, and that's been going well. And social media, the links are on any of these pages, but basically at Only by Midnight on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And we had a lot of fun making this game. We'd really like you to just stop by and play it and try it.
Yeah, and we'll be out on PC, so Steam, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to covering Curve Space and all future projects by Only by Midnight here on CanadianGameDevs.com.
And thank you so much for what you're doing. It's been a joy seeing you guys on Twitter. It feels nice to see that sort of spotlight for Canadian development, not just personally, but all these really cool projects. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We love doing our part. We love seeing, covering, being. Isn't that right, Steve?
That's exactly.
Cool. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And yeah, join the Discord at Only by Midnight and CurveSpaceGame.com. Bye.